When the San Antonio Spurs hit the jackpot of a lifetime in landing the #1 pick in the 2023 draft to get the chance to draft a prospect of a lifetime, a generational talent that has been touted as the greatest prospect since LeBron James, the thought was that this could not be a more perfect situation for the young French prodigy and Victor Wembanyama to come into as one of the most respected and winning organizations in the NBA and a Hall of Fame coach, arguably the greatest coach of all time, to develop, mentor, and build him into the superstar everyone was expecting of him. And while most knew that despite adding Wembanyama and ultimately changing the trajectory of their franchise, we all knew that this Spurs team still had a long ways to go before truly starting to compete, because as good as Wemby was and was projected to be, a young 19-year-old wasn't going to suddenly turn around one of the worst teams in the NBA into being a playoff contender. But that said though, you would have expected the Spurs to be better than what we're currently seeing in the early going of the season. And a team that, despite having one of the greatest prospects of our generation, might still need to think about making changes for the future of their franchise, and it's what we'll be talking about in this video. But before I get into that, I am super excited to announce that we have a new sponsor that is going to be sponsoring the channel for the entire NBA season, so you're going to be hearing more from these guys, and that's Underdog Fantasy. We've partnered with Underdog in the past, and I absolutely love this platform so much just because it's super easy to use. And if you're like me and like making predictions and maybe want to make a little money on the side, then you're going to want to hear this offer from Underdog. As I've said before, the offer aside, Underdog Fantasy is truly the easiest fantasy sports app to use and navigate with their user-friendly interface. My personal interface that I use on the app is NBA Pick'ems. They have higher or lowers on most players' stats for any game. Just pick higher or lower on whether you think Jason Tatum, as an example, is going to score more than 28 points tonight, and you can win up to 20 times your money in a single night if you do 5 Pick'ems and get them all right. And guys, they're offering viewers of this channel an exclusive offer. If you use the code AND1HOOPS, all one word, you'll get your first deposit doubled up to $100. Who doesn't want free money, right? It's really that easy. And of course, it's a great way to support the channel. I'll leave a link to the site and the code in the description if you're interested, and let me know what picks you guys end up making. Also, real quick, if you're new to the channel and you like this type of content, then be sure to subscribe to help the channel grow. We are nearing 25,000 subscribers, and I cannot thank you all enough for the support on the channel over the past year since starting it. And of course, in return, I'll be providing more NBA content like this. Now, at the time of this recording, the Spurs are in a bit of a free fall. After starting out the season 3-2 with impressive back-to-back wins over the Phoenix Suns, since then they have now lost 12 straight and found themselves dead last in the Western Conference. But it's not even just their record or the fact that they've lost 12 straight games. It's how they have been losing these games that is especially perplexing. Because yes, this is a very young team, and you expect that and experience to impact their ability to close out games. But the Spurs, for the most part, haven't even been able to be competitive in most of their games in the early going. The Spurs have a point differential of 12.9, which is the worst in the league, with the Pistons, who are also god-awful, with the second worst point differential of 8.1, a near 5-point difference between the Spurs and the Pistons. And what's shocking to me is just how bad they are utilizing Wembanyama on offense. And the reason I say it's shocking is because it's not like they have a subpar coach who can't figure out how to get the best out of their star rookie. No, this is Greg Popovich we're talking about here. And for the Spurs, especially in late game situations, you have guys that are making poor decisions, mental lapses on offense, poor shot selection with terrible court vision, and creating unforced turnovers. Like, it's almost maddening to watch how this team isn't taking advantage of having one of the most gifted and versatile players the league has seen in years. Jeremy Sochan, for a player who we were talking about as having one of the more unexpected and surprisingly good rookie seasons, I hate to put it this way, but it's been kind of spoiling Wembanyama's rookie season. His poor decisions on offense and inefficiency and the rate at which he turns the ball over makes you want to pull your hair out. There have been multiple games in their 12-game losing streak where the Spurs have gone on a run, they have the momentum, and in some instances they take the lead, and then you have Sochan coming in and making boneheaded plays when the Spurs have him running the point. I love Popovich, but Sochan should not be your starting point guard when you have Victor Wembanyama. You talk about the easiest pick and roll and pick and pop player in Wemby with his length and shooting ability, and they have a player who is best suited at the 4, they have him running point as the floor general. I really don't get it. And yes, I'm fully aware Wemby is a power forward and you're not going to have Sochan start at 4 over him, but don't have him running point. You have Trey Jones, who yes has his flaws, but he's certainly a better playmaker and ball handler than Jeremy Sochan is. Dude hasn't started a game this season and hasn't played that many minutes, in my opinion anyway, with Wemby to maximize his effectiveness on offense. Now, in addition to all of this, it also doesn't help that Keldon Johnson, who was the Spurs' leading scorer last season and was having really a breakout year, has taken a little bit of a step back. And actually, I shouldn't say step back because he's still playing well. He's actually been more efficient on offense thus far than he was last season, but his overall touches and usage has dipped because, again, Wemby. And I do think there is something to be said to ensure you continue to focus on Johnson as that secondary star that you can develop into a number 2 or number 3 option, because sometimes you'll see Johnson trying to force the issue when he finally gets the ball in his hands or trying to take over the game at incorrect times. And they have Johnson playing more inside when he's way more effective as a wing perimeter player. But look, all this to say, regardless of some of these questionable decisions, regardless of the poor play on the court, the mistakes you're seeing from the younger players, the Spurs, they still should not be this bad. Like, they should not be losing games this badly. They should not be dead last in the league in net rating, giving up 123 points per game. They shouldn't be one of the bottom teams in the league in rebounding with their size, and they shouldn't be letting their opponent shoot 50% on them every night, which is also dead last in the NBA. The Spurs have become one of the hardest teams to watch for a team that was thought to be must-see TV because of Victor Wembanyama. Now, that said, I can't sit here and say that Wemby has been incredible and everyone else on the team is killing his progress and making his rookie season look bad. Because as good as Wemby has been, I do think this is yet another lesson in tempering expectations when it comes to labeling a player as the greatest prospect this generation of basketball has seen. We've seen countless players be touted as the greatest prospect since LeBron James, Andrew Wiggins, Ben Simmons, Zion Williamson, and it's pretty clear years into their careers, yeah, they were never going to become the level of player LeBron is and being one of the greatest players of all time. Victor Wembanyama absolutely is a special player and is a future superstar in the making with his combined skills on offense and defense, but pegging him to be the next top 10, some people even saying the next top 5 greatest player of all time, is a bit of a stretch and way too early to be making that kind of claim. Man still needs to work on his jump shot, especially from behind the arc, and as young of a player as he is, he still needs to work on his overall decision making and taking care of the ball better, which will come with time. And for his size and footwork in the paint, man needs to improve his ability to finish at the rim as well. Again, all things I have no doubt that Wemby will be able to do and figure out in the next couple of seasons. But placing these insanely high expectations of him are setting the guy up for disappointment, and it's why you have people barking out about how he's already falling below expectations because of what LeBron was able to do in his rookie season and making the Cavs better compared to Wembanyama, where you actually have seen the Spurs play worse than they did last season thus far in the early going. Now, for the Spurs, I think the biggest question is, knowing they have Wemby and all the other assets they have at their disposal in the former draft capital they received from the Hawks in the DeJounte Murray trade, as well as just the level of young talent they have, the biggest question is, where do they go from here in terms of building around Wemby and maximizing his potential? Because as good as Sochan is, and I still believe he does have upside, he's not a point guard. And if he's going to be a power forward and you're never going to have him start at the 4 and have Wemby play the 5, then you may look to package him in a deal when his trade value is decently high for being a young 20-year-old player that plays with a lot of effort and energy and can play both ends of the floor. They've got to get rid of Doug McDermott, Devontae Graham. Those guys do not fit their overall timeline. Zach Collins has actually been decent for them, but I don't know how he fits their long-term vision as well. But really above everything else, the Spurs need a competent starting level point guard that can play make and be that floor general to run the pick and roll with Wemby and get him the best looks and shots available. Wemby can create shots for himself, but he's that much more lethal when he's got a high-level savvy point guard next to him. Who is that point guard? I honestly don't really know. Maybe they try and make a play for a more veteran-type point guard just to help with Wemby's development, maybe like a Spencer Dinwiddie, Malcolm Brogdon, Dennis Schroeder, more so just thinking of players that might be available by the trade deadline, not necessarily players that are needle movers, but more so players that are going to get the most out of Wembanyama, which should be the Spurs' primary focus at this point. For Wemby's sake, for the NBA's sake, I hope the Spurs can turn things around a bit, at least to be a little more competitive and exciting to watch, because right now it's pretty painful to see some of the performances this team is putting up. Let me know what you guys think of the Spurs and their start to the season. Let me know in the comments. As always, be sure to subscribe, and I will see you in the next one.